Intermittent fasting is not what you think it is. Not because it fails, but because why it works is simpler than anyone wants to admit. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what decades of research actually says about fasting, metabolism, and weight loss. The Cochrane collaboration just published what might be the single most comprehensive review of intermittent fasting ever done. Now, if you do not know Cochrane, they are basically the gold standard for systematic medical evidence reviews. Governments and hospitals rely on their analysis to set policy. This was not a small study. They analyzed 22 separate randomized controlled trials with nearly 2,000 total participants across multiple countries. Every major fasting protocol was tested head-to-head against standard calorie restriction to see if any of them performed better. They looked at time-restricted eating, where you squeeze all your meals into an 8 or 10-hour window and fast the rest of the day. They looked at alternate day fasting, where you eat normally one day and then consume very few calories the next. And they looked at the popular 5-2 approach, which is 5 normal eating days with 2 very low calorie days per week. And the headline finding after all of that analysis? None of these fasting methods outperformed simply eating fewer calories spread across the whole day. Not time-restricted eating, not alternate day fasting, not the 5-2 method. Zero measurable advantage over basic calorie restriction for weight loss. Now, before the fasting community comes for me, I want to be really clear about something. The Cochrane review also found that intermittent fasting was not worse than standard dieting either. The two approaches produced roughly equivalent weight loss outcomes. So fasting is not broken. It is just not magic. But here is the piece that most people completely miss about this debate. The question was never whether intermittent fasting helps you lose weight. Of course fasting can help you lose weight. The real question that matters is whether the fasting window itself does something metabolically special, beyond just making you eat fewer total calories. And that is exactly what a separate German study set out to test. This was published in Science Translational Medicine in late 2025. The researchers designed a very clever experiment where participants did time-restricted eating, but the researchers carefully controlled total daily calories to keep them exactly the same as the control group. No deficit at all, just a smaller eating window. And the result was absolutely crystal clear. Zero metabolic benefit. No improvement in blood sugar regulation, no change in insulin sensitivity, no shift in cardiovascular markers. The eating window by itself, without a calorie deficit, produced literally no measurable health improvement. This is a huge finding because it cleanly separates the mechanism from the method. Fasting works when and only when it creates a calorie deficit. The time window is just a behavioral tool to help some people get there. There is nothing inherently metabolic about the fasting state that gives you an edge. Researchers at Rutgers University confirmed exactly the same conclusion in their own independent analysis of the data. Lead author Luis Garegnani put it very plainly. He said, intermittent fasting is not a miracle solution. It is one of many dietary tools, and it works because it helps certain people naturally eat less food throughout the day. Now, here is what I actually find really interesting about all of this combined research. If both intermittent fasting and standard calorie restriction work through exactly the same mechanism, which is creating a calorie deficit, then logically the absolute best approach for any individual person is whichever method they can actually stick with consistently over months and years. And this is where individual differences really start to matter. Some people genuinely love having a clear eating window because it completely simplifies their daily food decisions. It removes that constant background question of, should I eat something right now, from their entire day. That kind of structure is incredibly powerful for people who struggle with grazing and mindless snacking. But other people find fasting windows genuinely restrictive and uncomfortable. They end up overeating during their allowed hours because they feel psychologically deprived. And that pattern of restriction, followed by overconsumption, completely erases any calorie benefit the eating window was supposed to create. Now, one detail that the Cochrane review did specifically flag as noteworthy. Alternate day fasting showed a very slight edge over standard dieting in the data. About 1.3 extra kilograms of weight loss on average. But the researchers rated the evidence certainty as low, and long-term adherence data was essentially non-existent. So that small advantage might not even hold up over time. There is also a really interesting angle on meal timing that came out of a study from National Taiwan University. They found that when time-restricted eating does produce meaningful benefits, the timing of your eating window matters enormously. An earlier eating window, think 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., consistently outperformed a later window, like noon to 8 p.m., for metabolic health outcomes. Which honestly makes complete sense when you think about circadian biology. Your body handles food processing better in the morning when cortisol is elevated and insulin sensitivity peaks. Eating a big meal late at night is literally fighting against your own biological clock. So let me boil all of this research down into 3 practical takeaways. Number 1, intermittent fasting is a valid and effective approach to weight loss. It genuinely works for many people, but it works specifically because it helps you consume fewer total calories. There is no special metabolic state that fasting activates. The deficit is what matters. Number 2, if you restrict your eating window but still consume the same total calories, do not expect any metabolic improvement whatsoever. The German study proved this conclusively. The window alone, without a calorie reduction, does nothing for your metabolic markers. And number 3, if you do decide to use intermittent fasting, try to eat earlier in the day when your metabolism is naturally primed. The Taiwan research strongly suggests morning eating windows produce better results than evening windows for every metabolic marker measured. At the end of the day, the best diet is the one you can actually stick to consistently, not the one with the best marketing or the most passionate online community defending it. If you found this breakdown useful, join the community and subscribe so you do not miss the next evidence-based deep dive. And drop a comment with the nutrition myth you want us to bust next.